She walked out of her sister-in-law's engagement. The bride whispered with a sneer, "The stinky country girl is here." She had no idea that she owned the hotel, or that the bride's family was about to learn it the bloody way. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, your own family channel. May the Almighty surround you with His mercy and calm every storm in your life. May He grant every woman in this family strength beyond words, patience beyond measure, and honor that no one can ever take away. Women are the quiet backbone of love, carrying families, healing wounds, holding tears inside, and still standing with grace. May God protect your health, lift every burden from your heart, and reward every sacrifice you make in silence. My beautiful family, I write with love and honesty. When some of you don't stay till the end, it makes me question myself, not you. I give my heart, my time, my emotions to these stories because you matter to me. If you are here, please stay. Please feel. Please be part of this journey. Your presence means more than you know. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, "I am with Mr. Peter." Let's start with love. The crystal chandelier above the Grand Meridian Ballroom cast diamonds of light across faces that had perfected the art of looking down on others. Pega MacDonald stood in the doorway, her simple black dress stark against the sea of designer gowns and tailored suits. She'd come straight from her shift, her hair pulled back in a practical bun, her shoes scuffed from walking between meetings all day. The exhaustion sat heavy in her bones, but she had promised herself she would attend this engagement party. Family was family, even when family treated you like dirt. Amanda Cherry spotted her immediately. Pega's sister-in-law turned to her cluster of bridesmaids, her voice carrying across the marble floor with deliberate cruelty. "Oh God, the stinky country girl actually came. Look at those shoes. Did she walk here through a garbage dump?" Laughter rippled through the group like poison spreading through water. Pega felt the familiar burn in her chest, the one that had become a constant companion over the years. She kept walking, her face neutral, giving them nothing. Holly Cherry stood near the bar with his mother, a champagne flute frozen halfway to his lips. For one brief moment, their eyes met across the room. Pega saw something flicker in his expression, something that might have been shame or regret. But then his mother touched his arm, leaning close to whisper something, and Holly looked away. He always looked away. His mother's voice rose above the jazz music, loud enough for half the ballroom to hear. "Some people just don't understand elegance. Breeding shows, doesn't it? You can put a person in a ballroom, but you cannot teach them how to belong there." More laughter. Pega recognized the faces turning to stare, the same people who had attended her wedding 6 years ago and whispered behind their programs. The same people who had made it clear that a hotel maid did not belong in the Cherry family. Amanda glided toward her fiancé's family, her voice dripping with false modesty. "We are so blessed that Richard's family only associates with the finest people. They have standards, you know. Unlike some relatives we are forced to tolerate out of obligation." The words landed like slaps. Pega absorbed them the way she had absorbed countless others. She moved through the crowd, invisible despite being the center of their mockery. She had learned this skill over the years, how to exist in spaces that did not want her, how to breathe in rooms that tried to suffocate her. She made her way past the elaborate floral arrangements, past the ice sculptures shaped like swans, past the string quartet playing in the corner. Everything screamed money and status and superiority. Everything was designed to make people like her feel small. Pega reached the front desk of the hotel, where a young woman in a crisp uniform smiled professionally. "Good evening. How may I help you?" Pega leaned close, her voice barely a whisper. "Terminate the Cherry engagement party. Immediately. Full security escort. They have 30 minutes to vacate the premises." The desk clerk's eyes widened. "I'm sorry, I don't have the authority to—" Pega pulled out her identification badge, the one she kept hidden beneath her dress. Not the employee badge, The other one. The clerk's face went pale. She picked up the phone, her hands shaking slightly as she dialed. Yes, this is the front desk. I have a Code 7 situation. The owner has issued a direct termination order for the cherry party in the grand ballroom. Yes, I'm certain. She's standing right here. Pegger stepped back, watching the gears turn into motion. Within minutes, the ballroom lights dimmed once, twice, 3 times. The universal signal that something was wrong. The hotel's head of security appeared at the ballroom entrance with uniformed officers. The jazz music died mid-note. The general manager strode to the center of the room, his expression professionally apologetic but firm. Ladies and gentlemen, I apologize for the interruption. This event has been terminated effective immediately. You have 30 minutes to gather your belongings and vacate the premises. Security will assist you to the exits. The ballroom erupted in chaos. Amanda's shriek cut through the confusion like a knife. What? This is insane. Do you know who we are? Do you know how much we paid for this venue? The general manager remained calm. All deposits will be refunded. However, the decision is final and non-negotiable. Holly's mother pushed through the crowd, her face red with rage and humiliation. She grabbed the manager's arm. I demand to speak to whoever is responsible for this outrage. Get me the owner, now. The manager gently removed her hand from his sleeve. You are speaking to a representative of the owner. The decision stands. Then get the owner down here. I want to see the face of the person who thinks they can treat the Cherry family this way. The manager's expression shifted, something almost like satisfaction crossing his features. The owner is already here, Mrs. Cherry. He turned, gesturing toward the entrance where Pegger stood, perfectly still, perfectly composed. Ms. Pegger MacDonald has revoked your reservation. The silence that followed was absolute. Every eye in the ballroom turned to Pegger. She watched their faces transform from confusion to recognition to disbelief. She saw Holly's champagne flute slip from his fingers, shattering on the marble floor. She saw Amanda's mouth open and close like a fish drowning in air. She saw Holly's mother take a physical step backward, as if Pegger had struck her. Pegger said nothing. She simply stood there, letting them see her, really see her for the first time in 6 years. Amanda found her voice first, shrill and desperate. That's impossible. She's nobody. She's just a maid. She can't own this hotel. The general manager's voice was ice. Ms. MacDonald owns this hotel and 11 others in the city. She is the founder and CEO of the MacDonald Hospitality Group, and she has permanently revoked your family's access to all our properties. The weight of those words settled over the room like snow before an avalanche. Holly pushed through the crowd, his face ashen. Pegger, wait! But she was already turning, walking away with the same quiet dignity she had walked in with. As she passed through the marble lobby, her heels clicking against the floor, she noticed the walls for the first time through their eyes. Awards in elegant frames lined the corridor. Hotel Owner of the Year, Businesswoman of the Decade, Entrepreneur Excellence Award. Her face smiled from every photograph, professional and powerful and completely foreign to the woman they thought they knew. They had walked past these walls 100 times. They had never once looked up. Behind her, security began the process of escorting the Cherry family and their guests toward the exits. She heard Amanda's protests, Holly's mother's demands, the general confusion of people who had never been told no in their privileged lives. Pegger kept walking until she reached the private elevator that led to the penthouse suites. She pressed her palm against the biometric scanner. The doors slid open silently, but before she could step inside, she heard footsteps running behind her. Fast, desperate, uncoordinated. Pegger, please wait. Holly's voice, the voice that had once promised her the world, and then slowly, painfully, taken it all back. She turned slowly, her finger hovering over the elevator button that would take her away from this moment. He stood 10 feet away, breathing hard from his sprint through the lobby. His perfect suit was disheveled, his carefully styled hair falling across his forehead the way it used to when they stayed up all night talking about their dreams. Their eyes met, really met, for the first time in 3 years. Pega felt the careful walls she had built brick by brick begin to tremble. She felt the tears rising despite her desperate attempts to push them down. She felt every moment of the last 6 years crashing over her like waves against rocks, erosion that happened so slowly you did not notice until everything had changed shape. "Pega," Holly whispered, taking a step closer. "I didn't know. God, I didn't know any of this. How could I not know?" A single tear slipped down her cheek, just one. She let him see it, let him see what his willful blindness had cost. "You never asked," she said, her voice steady, despite the earthquake happening inside her chest. "You never once asked what I was building while you were busy choosing them over me." She stepped into the elevator. Holly lunged forward, his hand reaching for her, his face breaking into an expression of such raw pain that for a moment she almost reached back. "Please don't leave. Not like this. Let me explain. Let me—" The elevator doors slid shut, cutting off his words. Pega leaned against the mirrored wall, her reflection staring back at her. Powerful, successful, utterly alone. Her phone buzzed, a text from her assistant. "Security reports the Cherry family has been fully escorted from the premises. Mrs. Cherry is threatening legal action. Amanda Cherry collapsed in the parking lot, requiring medical attention. Holly Cherry is still in the lobby. He's just standing there, not moving. Should we have him removed?" Pega looked at the message for a long moment. Her finger hovered over the reply. Then she typed, "Let him stand there as long as he wants. Let him feel what it's like to wait for someone who isn't coming back." She pressed send. The elevator reached the top floor, opening into her private penthouse. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the city she had conquered. Modern furniture in shades of white and gold. Art on the walls worth more than Holly's family made in a year. Everything she had dreamed of that night when she was crying over her mother's medical bills, and a kind stranger had asked her what she wanted. Pega walked to the windows, looking down at the city lights below. Somewhere down there, Holly was standing in her lobby, destroyed by the truth he had been too blind to see. She pressed her palm against the cold glass, and for the first time in 5 years, Pega MacDonald let herself break. She slid down to the floor, her back against the window, and sobbed into her hands. Great, gasping cries that shook her entire body. All the years of swallowing her pain, all the nights of working herself to exhaustion, all the moments of standing tall, while they made her feel microscopic, it all came pouring out. She cried for the girl who had loved a man brave enough to defy his family. She cried for the wife who had watched that man slowly disappear. And she cried for the queen who had built an empire but lost her kingdom in the process. Her phone buzzed again. Another text from the lobby. "He's still here, just standing by the elevator. It's been an hour. He's crying." Pega stared at the message, her tears drying on her face. Part of her wanted to go back down. Part of her wanted to rage at him for every wound he had inflicted. Part of her wanted to hold him the way she used to, back when his arms felt like home instead of a cage. But the largest part of her, the part that had survived and thrived and conquered, knew that some bridges had to burn completely before anything new could grow. She turned off her phone. Tomorrow she would be the queen again. Tomorrow she would face whatever came next with steel in her spine and ice in her veins. But tonight she would let herself feel every bit of the heartbreak she had been too busy surviving to acknowledge. The city lights blurred through her tears. And somewhere far below, in the lobby of the empire she had built, her husband stood alone, finally understanding exactly what he had lost. Chapter 2. The wedding that wasn't 6 years earlier, Pegar had believed in fairy tales. She stood in the empty lobby of the Grand Meridian Hotel at 2 in the morning, her maid's uniform wrinkled from 12 hours of scrubbing bathrooms and changing linens. Her feet ached, her back screamed, but she had promised herself she would study, so she studied. The hotel management textbook lay open on her lap, words swimming before her exhausted eyes. Revenue management strategies, occupancy optimization, guest satisfaction metrics. Each term felt like a key to a door she desperately wanted to open. She did not hear him approach until he spoke. "That's advanced material. Most people don't tackle that until their final year." Pegar's head snapped up. A man stood a few feet away, maybe 30 years old, dressed in business casual clothes that looked expensive but comfortable. He had kind eyes and a smile that reached them. "I'm sorry," she said quickly, closing the book. "I'm on my break. I wasn't sleeping or—" "Relax." He held up his hands. "I'm not management. I'm Holly. Holly Cherry. I'm here for the business conference. Saw you reading and got curious." He sat down in the chair across from her, uninvited, but somehow not intrusive. "I teach business management at the university," he continued. "That textbook you're reading? I helped write it." Pegar's eyes widened. "You wrote this?" "Contributed to Chapter 7, the boring one about operational efficiency." He grinned. "What's your name?" "Pegar. Pegar MacDonald. And you're studying hotel management while working as a maid here. That's ambitious." Something about the way he said it, without condescension or surprise, just genuine interest, made the walls around her heart crack just slightly. "I want to own a place like this someday," she admitted, then immediately regretted it. It sounded ridiculous out loud, a maid dreaming of owning a luxury hotel. But Holly did not laugh. He leaned forward, his expression serious. "You will. I can see it in you. You're reading textbooks at 2 in the morning after a full shift. That's not ambition. That's hunger. And hunger changes the world." They talked until her break ended. And then, the next night, he was there again. And the night after that, it became their routine. Holly would finish his conference sessions and wait in the lobby for Pegar's break. They would talk about business, about life, about dreams. He brought her coffee, quizzed her on management theories, made her believe that the impossible was simply difficult. One night, she broke down completely. "My mother has 3 months, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "The doctors said 3 months. I'm working 4 jobs and taking extra shifts, and it's still not enough for the treatment she needs. I'm failing her. I'm failing at everything." Holly did not offer empty reassurances. He just moved closer, took her hand, and held it while she cried. "What's your dream?" he asked quietly. "After everything, after all of this, what do you want?" Pegar looked up at him through her tears. "I want to own a place like this, so no one can ever make me feel small again, so I can give other people the chances no one gave me." "Then that's what you'll do," Holly said with absolute certainty. "And I'll help you believe it's possible." He kept his promise. For the next 3 months, he came to the hotel every evening. He helped her study. He covered her textbook costs. He introduced her to contacts in the hospitality industry. He made her feel like she was brilliant instead of broken. The night her mother died, Holly held her for 6 hours in the rooftop garden of the Grand Meridian. He did not try to fix her pain. He just carried it with her. A week later, he proposed in that same garden. "Marry me," he said simply. "Not because you need me. You're going to be spectacular with or without me. But because I need you to teach me how to be as strong as you are. Because when I'm with you, I understand what bravery actually means." She said yes through her tears. His family refused to attend the wedding. His mother made her position clear on a phone call that Pegar overheard through the bedroom door. "Marry a maid, and you are no son of mine, Holly. She's dragging you down. She's using you. When this falls apart, don't come crying to me." Holly had hung up on her. He had turned to Pega with fire in his eyes. "We don't need them. You're all I need, us against the world, remember?" They married in a small ceremony at the courthouse with two strangers as witnesses. Holly wore his best suit. Pega wore a simple white dress she bought at a thrift store. It was the happiest day of her life. The first year was magic. Holly defended her to his family every time they called with their poison. He cooked dinner when she came home exhausted. He rubbed her feet while she studied. He believed in her dreams as fiercely as she did. They were building something beautiful. And then his father got sick. It started slowly. A diagnosis. A poor prognosis. His mother's increasingly desperate phone calls. "Your father is dying, Holly. He wants to see you. He wants his family together." Holly started going to his parents' house for dinners, just one night a week at first, then two, then every weekend. Pega told herself it was natural. His father was dying. Family was important. But then the calls came during their dinner time. Holly would excuse himself, spending an hour on the phone with his mother, while Pega sat alone at the table she had carefully set. "She's struggling," he would explain when he finally returned. "She needs me right now." Pega understood. She tried to understand. Then came the night that broke them. Pega had made Holly's favorite dinner. She wore the white dress from their wedding, the one she had carefully preserved. She lit candles, put on soft music. She needed this, needed to feel like they were still them. She waited. 6 o'clock became 7. 7 became 8. 8 became midnight. Holly finally walked through the door at midnight, exhausted and distracted. He barely glanced at the cold food on the table, the burned-down candles, Pega sitting in the dark in her wedding dress. "Sorry, I'm late. My mother needed me to help her sort through some of Dad's medical bills. She's overwhelmed." Pega's voice came out small. "Do you still love me?" Holly looked at her like she had spoken a foreign language. "What? Of course. Why would you ask that?" "Because you look at me like I'm furniture, like I'm just here, like I'm not even real anymore." The tears started, hot and fast. "You don't see me, Holly. You haven't seen me in months. I'm disappearing right in front of you, and you don't even notice." Holly's response was not reassurance. It was defensiveness. "That's not fair, Pega. My father is dying. I'm trying to hold my family together. Can't you understand that I'm drowning here?" "I'm drowning too," she whispered, "but you're not here to see it." They stood in the kitchen, the ruins of the dinner she had made sitting between them like a monument to everything falling apart. Holly rubbed his face, too tired for this conversation. "I don't want to fight. I'm exhausted. Can we just go to bed?" That was the moment Pega knew. She knew that his mother had won, that the distance between them had grown too wide to bridge with candlelight and hope, that she was losing him to guilt and obligation and the family that would never accept her. But she was not ready to give up. Not yet. Over the next month she tried everything. She worked harder to prove her worth. She made herself smaller to avoid conflict. She stopped complaining when he missed dinners. She became invisible, hoping that would somehow make him see her again. It did not work. Holly's father died on a Tuesday. The funeral was beautiful and heartbreaking. Pega stood beside Holly in the church, holding his hand while he wept. His mother refused to acknowledge her presence. After the burial, after the reception, after everyone had gone home, Holly's mother pulled him aside. Pega watched from across the room as the older woman spoke urgently to her son, gesturing, pleading. When Holly returned, his face was set in stone. "My mother wants me to move back home for a while, just until she adjusts. She can't be alone right now." Pega's heart stopped. "How long?" "I don't know. A few weeks. Maybe a month." "Holly, we just got married a year ago. You're going to leave me alone for a month?" His jaw tightened. "She's my mother. She just lost her husband. What do you want me to do? Abandon her? I want you to remember that you have a wife. I want you to choose us instead of constantly choosing her feelings over mine. That's selfish, Pega. I'm sorry you can't see that. He packed a bag that night, said it was temporary, said he would be home soon. He was gone for 2 months. During those 2 months, something inside Pega calcified. The soft parts of her that had believed in love and partnership and forever hardened into something stronger, something that would not break again. When Holly finally came home, she was already different, already building the armor that would protect her through the years to come. I'm back, he said, setting his bag down in the apartment they had once filled with laughter. I see that, Pega replied, her voice flat. Holly tried to hug her. She allowed it, but did not return it. He pulled back, confused. Are you angry with me? No, she said honestly. I'm not angry anymore. I'm just done expecting you to be who you were. The man I married died when you chose to leave. Pega, that's not fair. I know what you had to do, and now I have to do what I have to do, which is accept that I'm alone in this marriage. She walked to their bedroom and closed the door. Holly stood in the living room, holding the ruins of what they used to be, finally understanding that something irreparable had broken. But understanding came too late. In the present, Pega sat in her penthouse office, the wedding photo from that courthouse ceremony sitting in her desk drawer. She had not thrown it away, had not been able to. She opened the drawer, looking at their young, hopeful faces, at Holly's smile, so full of promise, at her own eyes, so full of trust. We were so stupid, she whispered to the photograph. We thought love was enough. Her assistant knocked, entering with a stack of contract applications. The Cherry family's catering business has applied for the 3rd time this month, she said. They're getting desperate. Should I send the standard rejection? Pega looked at the application, saw Holly's signature at the bottom. His handwriting had not changed. She thought about the man who had held her when her mother died, the man who had proposed in the rooftop garden, the man who had promised her the world and then slowly taken it all back. Yes, she said, her voice empty. Standard rejection, permanently denied. The assistant left. Pega put the wedding photo back in the drawer and locked it. Some memories needed to stay buried. But late that night, when she was alone in her penthouse, she found herself standing in front of the locked drawer. Her hand trembled as she opened it, pulled out the photo, traced Holly's face with her finger. Where did you go? She asked the image. Where did the man I married go? The photograph, of course, gave no answer. Somewhere in the city, Holly sat in his tiny apartment, looking at his own copy of that same photo, asking himself the exact same question. Chapter 3. The architect of her own empire. 4 years ago, Pega MacDonald made a decision that would change everything. She stopped waiting for Holly to save their marriage. She stopped begging for his attention. She stopped crying herself to sleep and waking up with hope that today would be different. She decided to save herself instead. The hospital incident had been the final straw, though Holly never knew how close he came to losing her that day. Pega had been working 4 jobs simultaneously, hotel maid during the day, night clerk at a different property 3 evenings a week, weekend consulting for small businesses, and studying for her hotel management certification whenever she could find spare moments. Sleep became a luxury she could not afford. Food became fuel she consumed standing up. Her body became a machine she pushed past every reasonable limit. Holly barely noticed. He was too busy managing his mother's emotional crises, which seemed to multiply exponentially after his father's death. On a Thursday afternoon, Pega collapsed in the middle of scrubbing a bathroom at the Grand Meridian. One moment she was conscious, the next she was waking up on the tile floor with her supervisor calling for an ambulance. Dehydration, the doctor said. Exhaustion, malnutrition. Her body had simply shut down from the abuse. They admitted her, hooked her up to an IV, told her she needed to rest, that she was destroying herself. Pega lay in the hospital bed staring at the ceiling and called Holly. He came within the hour, his face pale with worry. For a brief moment, looking at his genuine concern, she thought maybe this would be the wake-up call. Maybe this would make him see what he had been blind to. God, Pega, what happened? Are you okay? He held her hand, his thumb rubbing circles on her palm the way he used to. I collapsed at work, dehydration, exhaustion. The doctor says I've been pushing myself too hard. Holly's expression transformed from worry to guilt. I didn't realize. You never said anything. I should have noticed. You should have, she agreed quietly. They sat in silence for a moment. Pega felt hope blooming dangerously in her chest. Maybe this was the moment. Maybe he would finally choose her. Then his phone rang. His mother's name flashed on the screen. Holly looked at Pega apologetically. I should take this. She's been having a hard day. Pega's hope withered and died. Go ahead, she said, her voice hollow. Holly answered the call. His mother's voice, loud enough for Pega to hear, immediately launched into a crisis about something trivial. The gardener had trimmed the bushes wrong. The grocery store had run out of her preferred brand of tea. She needed Holly to come over immediately and fix everything. Mum, I'm actually at the hospital right now. Pega collapsed and... His mother's interruption cut through the room like a knife. The hospital? What happened? Are you hurt? Do you need me to come? No, I'm fine. It's Pega. She's dehydrated and exhausted from working too hard. A pause. Then cold as ice. Well, she should have taken better care of herself. That's what happens when people don't know their limits. Holly, I really need you here. This is an emergency. Pega watched Holly's face, watched him weighing the options, watched him choose wrong again. Mum, let me call you back in a bit. Let me just make sure Pega is settled. He stayed for 40 minutes. 40 minutes of distracted conversation, his eyes constantly drifting to his phone, his body language screaming that he wanted to be somewhere else. Finally, his mother called again. Holly answered immediately. Okay, Mom, I'll be there soon. Just let me... Pega cut him off, her voice flat and emotionless. Go home, Holly. What? No, let me stay. I want to... You're already gone. Your body is here, but your mind is with her. Just go. Holly looked torn, but not torn enough. Are you sure? Yes. Go be with your mother. She needs you. The words hung in the air, heavy with everything she did not say. And I don't. And I never will again. Holly left 15 minutes later, promising to come back in the evening. He did not come back. Pega lay in that hospital bed, IV in her arm, completely alone, and made a vow. She would never again depend on someone who had proven they would always choose someone else. She would build her own empire. She would become untouchable. She spent the night researching. By the time the nurse came to discharge her the next morning, Pega had a business plan. There was a boutique hotel downtown that had been failing for months. The owner was desperate to sell. The property was beautiful but mismanaged, running at a loss, being sold for pennies on the dollar. Pega had saved every extra penny from her multiple jobs for 2 years. It was not enough to buy the hotel outright, but it might be enough to convince a bank to take a risk on her. She went straight from the hospital to the bank. The loan officer was a middle-aged man in an expensive suit who looked at her like she was insane. Ms. MacDonald, you're asking us to lend you a substantial sum to purchase a failing hotel. You have no business experience, no collateral, and you're currently working as a maid. Why would we take that risk? Pega opened her laptop. She showed him the business plan she had created overnight in her hospital bed. Revenue projections, operational improvements, marketing strategies, a timeline for profitability. Because I know this industry better than the people currently running it into the ground. Because I've worked every position in a hotel from housekeeping to front desk to management. Because I have nothing to lose and everything to prove. The loan officer stared at her for a long moment. This is incredibly risky. If you fail, you'll lose everything. If I don't try, I've already lost. Something in her eyes must have convinced him. 3 weeks later, Pegah signed the papers to purchase the Riverside Boutique Hotel. Holly never knew. She never told him. By that point, they were living parallel lives in the same apartment, speaking only when necessary, sleeping in the same bed but oceans apart. Pegah worked 18-hour days transforming the Riverside. She fired the incompetent staff, hired people who gave a damn, renovated rooms on a shoestring budget, implemented new systems, marketed to a different demographic. Within 8 months, the Riverside was profitable. Within a year, it was thriving. Within 18 months, Pegah sold it for double what she paid, used the profit to purchase 2 more struggling properties. She became a ghost in her own marriage. Holly barely noticed. He was too consumed with his mother's endless needs to see that his wife was building an empire in the shadows. Every time the Cherry family catering business applied for contracts with her growing hotel portfolio, the applications crossed Pegah's desk. Every time she wrote "denied" across them in red ink, it felt like justice. Like every dinner he had missed, every promise he had broken, every time he had chosen his mother over his wife, condensed into a single word: denied. In the present, Pegah stood in her office, looking at the files documenting her rise. From hospital bed to hotel empire in 4 years, from maid to mogul, from invisible wife to unstoppable force. Her assistant entered with news. "Holly Cherry is here. He's demanding to see you. Security wants to know if they should remove him." Pegah's heart lurched. She had not spoken to him in 3 years. Not since she had stopped living in their apartment and moved into the penthouse above her flagship hotel. Not since she had decided that dying slowly in a marriage was worse than surviving alone. "Send him up," she said. Her assistant's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" "Yes, it's time he understood what he threw away." 10 minutes later, Holly stood in her office doorway. He looked older, tired. His suit was off the rack instead of tailored. His hair needed cutting. He looked like a man who had been struggling. Good, a dark part of Pegah thought. Let him struggle the way I struggled. "Pegah," he breathed, taking in her office, the floor-to-ceiling windows, the expensive furniture, the awards on the walls. "Is this real? Do you really own all of this?" "Yes," she said simply. "I built it while you were busy choosing everyone else over me." Holly's face crumbled. He moved into the office, his eyes darting around like he was seeing a stranger. "I don't understand. How? When? Why didn't you tell me?" Pegah's laugh was sharp and humorless. "I did tell you, Holly, every single day. Every time I came home exhausted, and you asked what I did, I told you. You just never listened. But hotels? Businesses? An empire? Pegah, this is impossible for a maid," she finished coldly. "Is that what you were going to say? That's what your family thought? That's what everyone thought? Turns out, when you work 4 jobs and sleep 3 hours a night and dedicate every ounce of yourself to something, impossible becomes inevitable." Holly looked like he might be sick. "The hospital, when you collapsed, that was because you were building all this?" "Yes." "And I left. I left you alone in that hospital bed to go to my mother's house because she was upset about bushes." "Yes." The word hung between them like a guillotine blade. Holly's knees buckled. He dropped into one of her expensive chairs, his head in his hands. "I destroyed us. I destroyed the only perfect thing in my life. You were dying in that hospital and I took a phone call. You made me dinner and I didn't even see it. You asked if I loved you and I made you feel crazy for asking." The words poured out of him, each one a confession, each one a wound reopening. "I see it now, Pega. Every moment I chose wrong, every time I made you small. I see all of it, and it's killing me. I let my mother convince me that you were the problem when all along I was the problem. I was weak. I was a coward. I chose the easy path of keeping my mother happy instead of the hard path of building a life with you." He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "I'm sorry. God, I'm so sorry. I would give anything to go back, to choose differently, to be the man I promised to be when I married you." Pega watched him break. Part of her felt vindicated. Part of her felt victorious. Part of her wanted to twist the knife deeper, but the largest part of her just felt tired. "Get up, Holly." He could not. He remained in the chair, sobbing, destroyed by the weight of his failures. "Get up," she said louder. "I won't watch you grovel. You lost that right when you walked out of that hospital room." Holly forced himself to stand, his legs shaking, his face wet with tears. Pega's own tears started then, betraying her careful control. "Your sister needs a venue. The answer is no. Your mother needs contracts. The answer is no. You need forgiveness." She paused, her voice breaking. "The answer is, I haven't decided yet. Because part of me still loves the man who held me when my mother died, and part of me hates the man who let me collapse alone." Holly stood frozen, afraid to move, afraid to speak, afraid that anything he did would shatter the fragile moment. "How do I fix this?" he whispered. "Tell me how to fix this and I'll do it. Anything, Pega, anything." She wiped her tears roughly, angry at herself for showing weakness. "You can't fix it, Holly. You can only live with what you broke, and so can I." She pressed a button on her desk. Her assistant appeared immediately. "Please escort Mr. Cherry out." "Pega, please, out, now." Security appeared. Holly allowed himself to be led away, his eyes never leaving her face, his expression devastated. When the door closed behind him, Pega collapsed into her chair. Her hands shook uncontrollably, her breath came in gasps. She had wanted that confrontation for 4 years, had imagined it 1,000 different ways, had rehearsed all the cutting things she would say, but she had not expected it to hurt this much. Had not expected seeing his pain to reopen every wound she thought had scarred over. Her phone buzzed, a message from building security. "He's still in the lobby, standing by the elevator. He's been there for 2 hours. Should we remove him?" Pega stared at the message, then at the locked drawer in her desk, where she kept the mementos of their marriage, the hospital bracelet, the cold dinner she had saved, the wedding photo, evidence that they had been real once, that love had existed before it died. She typed back, "Let him stand there. Let him understand what it feels like to wait for someone who isn't coming back." Chapter 4. The Mother's Destruction. 1 week after the confrontation in Pega's office, when the city had settled into the rhythm of autumn and the leaves were beginning their slow surrender to gravity, Diane Cherry appeared unannounced at the McDonald Hospitality Group headquarters. She did not come with an entourage. There were no expensive clothes meant to intimidate, no perfectly styled hair designed to impress. She looked diminished somehow, smaller than Pega remembered. Her face showed lines that had not been there before, the kind carved by regret rather than time. Pega's assistant buzzed through. "Mrs. Cherry is here. She says she needs to speak with you. Should I have security remove her?" Pega considered. Every logical bone in her body said yes. This woman had orchestrated the destruction of her marriage, had whispered poison in Holly's ear for years, had celebrated every moment of Pega's pain. But something in the assistant's tone caught her attention. "She's not demanding, she's asking, and she looks like she's been crying." "Send her in," Pega said, surprising herself. Diane entered slowly, her movements careful as if she was walking on broken glass. She did not sit until invited, did not speak until spoken to. The arrogance that had once defined her was gone, replaced by something that looked unsettlingly like humility. "Thank you for seeing me," Diane said quietly. "I wouldn't have blamed you if you had me thrown out." "I still might," Pega replied, her voice neutral. "Depends on why you're here." "I'm here to tell you the truth I should have told my son years ago." Pega gestured to the chair across from her desk. "Then sit and speak, but understand that nothing you say will change what happened. No apology will give me back the years your son wasted being your puppet." Diane flinched at the words, but accepted them. She sat down, her hands folded tightly in her lap, like she was physically holding herself together. "My husband didn't want Holly to leave you," she began, her voice steady but strained. "That's the first lie I need to confess. His dying wish wasn't to separate you. It was the opposite." Pega's heart stopped. She had suspected, but hearing it confirmed was different. Diane continued, the words coming faster now, as if she had been holding them in for too long. 3 days before he died, my husband pulled me aside. He was weak, struggling to breathe, but he was lucid. He said, "Diane, let Holly be happy with that girl. She's good for him. She makes him better. Don't destroy this because you're scared of being alone." Tears began rolling down Diane's face, but she did not wipe them away. "I promised him I would. I looked into my dying husband's eyes, and I promised I would support Holly's marriage. And then, the moment he died, I broke that promise." Pega's hands gripped the arms of her chair. "Why?" "Because I was terrified." Diane's voice broke completely. "My husband's business failed when Holly was young. We lost everything. I watched our friends disappear, watched people treat us like we were contagious. I rebuilt our social standing from nothing. It took me 15 years to claw back respectability." She looked up at Pega with eyes full of misery. "When Holly chose you, someone from a different world, someone who worked as a maid, I was terrified it would all come crashing down again. I was terrified people would mock us, that we'd lose status, that I'd become invisible again." "So you made me invisible instead," Pega said coldly. "Yes." Diane did not flinch from the accusation. "I weaponized my husband's death. I used guilt and grief to manipulate Holly into choosing me over you, over and over again. Every phone call, every crisis, every tearful plea, it was calculated. I knew exactly what I was doing." The confession hung in the air like smoke from a fire. "I taught Holly that love means sacrifice," Diane continued, her voice raw with self-loathing. "I taught him that being a good son meant destroying his marriage. I made him responsible for healing wounds his father left when he died. I turned my loneliness into his burden." She leaned forward, her eyes desperate. "But here's what I didn't understand, until it was too late. I didn't just destroy your marriage. I destroyed my relationship with my son, because when he finally saw what I had done, when he finally understood how I had manipulated him, he left." "Good," Pega said flatly. "6 months ago, Holly sent me a message," Diane said, pulling out her phone with shaking hands. "One message. That's all. I read it every day." She turned the phone so Pega could see. "You taught me that love means manipulation, that family means guilt, that being a good son means being a bad husband. I'm unlearning all of it now. Don't contact me. Don't come to my home. Don't use your pain as a weapon against me anymore. I'm done being your emotional support animal. I'm done sacrificing my life to fill the void Dad left. I'm done. We're done." Pega read the words twice. There was a finality to them that resonated with her own pain. "He hasn't spoken to me since," Diane whispered, putting her phone away. "Amanda won't look at me. My friends stopped calling when the story about the engagement party went public. I have nothing now, no son who trusts me, no daughter who respects me, no husband, no friends, nothing." She looked at Pega with eyes that held no hope, only brutal honesty. I built a prison out of pride and manipulation and fear, and now I'm the only one locked inside." The silence stretched between them, heavy with the weight of destroyed lives. Then Diane did something Pega never expected. She collapsed completely. Not metaphorically. She literally slid from the chair onto her knees on the expensive carpet, her body shaking with sobs that sounded like they were tearing her apart from the inside. "I destroyed everything," she gasped between sobs. "My son will never forgive me. He'll never trust me again. He found the one perfect thing in his life, and I convinced him to throw it away. I taught him that love was conditional, that approval had to be earned through sacrifice. I made him weak when he was born to be strong." She looked up at Pega from the floor, mascara running down her face, all pretense of dignity abandoned. "You won. Not the hotels, not the business empire, not the public humiliation. You won because you loved my son honestly, and I taught him to love dishonestly, and now he sees the difference. He'll never forgive me for that. Never." Pega watched this woman who had tormented her for years completely unravel. Part of her felt satisfaction, part of her felt disgust, part of her felt something dangerously close to pity. "Get up," Pega said finally. Diane struggled to her feet, her body still shaking with sobs. "I'm not going to tell you it's okay," Pega continued, her voice hard. "I'm not going to absolve you. You knew what you were doing. You chose to destroy a marriage because you were too broken to fix yourself. You used your son as a bandage for your wounds. I know. And now he's broken too. You broke him. He'll carry that damage for the rest of his life. I know." Pega stood, walking to the window, looking out at the city she had conquered while being destroyed by this woman's machinations. "Do you want to know what the worst part is?" Pega asked without turning around. "Tell me." "The worst part is that I understand. I understand being so scared of losing everything that you destroy everything instead. I understand making terrible choices because you're terrified. I understand all of it." She turned, her eyes blazing. "But understanding doesn't mean forgiving, and it sure as hell doesn't mean forgetting." Diane nodded, accepting the judgment. "I don't want your forgiveness. I came here to give you the truth I owe you, the truth Holly deserved to know years ago." She moved toward the door, then paused. "He's been living in a tiny apartment for the past 6 months, working multiple jobs. I found out from Amanda, who's been watching him from a distance. He's donating almost everything he earns to some scholarship fund. He won't tell anyone why." Pega's heart stuttered. "What scholarship fund?" "I don't know. Amanda says he's obsessed with it, working himself to exhaustion to fund it. She thinks he's trying to punish himself." Diane opened the door, then looked back one final time. "He's not the man I turned him into anymore. I don't know if that matters to you. I don't know if it's too late. But he's different now. Broken, but different." She left without waiting for a response. Pega stood alone in her office, Diane's confession echoing in her mind. She had wanted this, had wanted Diane to suffer, had wanted her to understand the magnitude of what she had destroyed, but now that she had it, it felt hollow, empty, like a victory that cost more than it was worth. She called her assistant. "Find out everything about Holly Cherry's recent financial activity, where he's living, where he's working, and especially where his money is going. I want a full report by tomorrow." "Of course. Anything specific you're looking for?" Pega hesitated. "I need to understand something. I need to understand if he really has changed, or if this is just another performance." The assistant left. Pega returned to the window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. Diane's broken face haunted her. The image of Holly cutting his mother off completely, walking away from the woman who had controlled him for so long. Was it too late for broken things to be repaired, or were some fractures too deep to ever heal? She did not know the answer, but she was starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, she needed to find out. Chapter 5. The Husband's Secret. The report arrived the next morning in a sealed envelope. Pegga held it for a long time before opening it, knowing that whatever was inside would change something, would force her to see Holly in a new light, whether she wanted to or not. Finally, she broke the seal. The first page was a financial summary, Holly's bank statements meticulously analyzed. Her investigator had been thorough. Holly Cherry currently resided in a studio apartment in one of the city's less desirable neighborhoods. Rent was minimal compared to what he could afford. His income came from 3 sources: teaching at a community college, private tutoring sessions, and weekend consulting for small businesses. None of those jobs paid particularly well individually. Together, they barely covered basic living expenses. But the interesting part was where his money went. Pegga's eyes traced the numbers, her breathing becoming shallow as she understood the pattern. 70% of Holly's income went directly to something called the McDonald Hospitality Scholarship Fund for disadvantaged students. Her scholarship fund, the one she had established years ago to help young people from poor backgrounds study hospitality management, the fund that helped people like her, people who worked as maids while dreaming of owning hotels. Holly had been anonymously funding it for 2 years. The amounts were substantial, tens of thousands over time, money he clearly did not have to spare, judging by his living situation. She flipped to the next page. Copies of emails, retrieved from public records and interviews with various hotel owners across the city. The first email was dated 3 years ago, before she had stopped speaking to him, before she had moved out, when their marriage was dying but not yet dead. The email was addressed to the owner of a boutique hotel who had rejected Pegga's early business proposal. "Dear Mr. Thompson, I am writing to reconsider your decision regarding Pegga McDonald's proposal for the Riverside property. I understand you have concerns about her lack of traditional business experience. However, I've had the privilege of watching her work for the past several years, and I can state with absolute certainty that she is the most driven, intelligent, and capable person I've ever met. She works 4 jobs simultaneously while studying hotel management. She has a gift for understanding what guests need before they know themselves. She sees patterns others miss. You'll regret not investing in her vision. In 10 years, she'll own half the hotels in this city, and you'll wish you'd been part of her story from the beginning. I just regret that I wasn't strong enough to make her believe I saw it too. Sincerely, Holly Cherry." Pegga's hand shook. She had never known about these emails, had never known he was fighting for her in the shadows while appearing weak in public. She flipped through more emails, dozens of them, sent to investors, to hotel owners, to business contacts, all singing her praises, all pushing for opportunities for her. Some were dated before the hospital incident, some after, some during the months when they were not speaking. He had never stopped believing in her, even when he was failing her as a husband. The final document in the report was the most devastating, a list of Holly's personal sales over the past year. His car sold for cash that went directly to the scholarship fund, his father's vintage watch collection auctioned off piece by piece, his furniture, his electronics, everything of value. He had liquidated his entire life to fund scholarships for people he would never meet, in her name, anonymously. Pegga's phone buzzed, her assistant. "Ms. McDonald, Holly Cherry is here again. He's asking to speak with you. Should I send him up now?" 5 minutes later, Holly stood in her office doorway, looking even more worn than the last time. His clothes were clean but threadbare. His face was gaunt, like he had not been eating properly. But his eyes were clear, determined, different. "Pegga, She threw the report at him. Papers scattered across the floor between them. "Why?" she demanded, her voice shaking with emotion. "Why would you fund my scholarship program? Why would you write those emails? Why would you sell everything you own for something I built? Holly looked down at the papers, then back at her, his expression resigned. Because even when I was failing you as a husband, I never stopped believing in you. I just couldn't figure out how to believe in myself enough to fight for us publicly. He moved into the office, kneeling to gather the scattered papers. I thought I was being smart. I thought I could support you in secret while keeping peace with my family openly. I thought I could have both. I was an idiot. You sold your father's watches, Pega said, her voice breaking. Those were the only things you had left of him. And they meant nothing compared to supporting something you built, something that helps people like you were, people who work themselves to death for a chance at something better. Holly stood, holding the papers, his eyes wet. You want to know the truth? Every single student who got one of those scholarships, I imagined them as you, working as a maid, studying at 2 in the morning, believing in something impossible. I funded them because I couldn't go back and save you from the struggle I watched you endure. But I could save others. Pega turned away from him, her emotions too raw to face directly. You let me collapse in that hospital. You took a phone call while I was hooked up to an IV. You left me alone when I needed you most. I know. His voice was thick with shame. I know, and I've spent every day since trying to become the man who would never do that again. The man who would stand up for what matters instead of what's comfortable. Why didn't you tell me about the emails? About the scholarships? Why keep it secret? Holly's laugh was bitter. Because what good would it have done? Hey, Pega, I know I'm failing you as a husband, but look, I wrote some nice emails about you. That's not support. That's cowardice wrapped in a prettier package. He moved closer, though he did not touch her. You asked me once how I could not know about your empire. The truth is, I did know. I saw the exhaustion. I saw you disappearing into your work. I saw all the signs that you were building something extraordinary. I just couldn't admit to myself that you were building it without me, that you had outgrown needing me. Pega spun around, tears streaming down her face. I never outgrew needing you. I just got tired of needing someone who wasn't there. The truth hung between them, devastating in its simplicity. I don't know how to fix this, Holly whispered. I don't know if I can, but I'm trying. I cut off my mother completely. I walked away from the family that poisoned me. I'm living in a shoebox apartment and working myself to exhaustion because the only thing that makes me feel remotely human is supporting something you created. He gestured to the papers. You want to know why I fund your scholarship program? Because it's the only way I can still be part of your life. The only way I can contribute to your success. Even if you never knew it was me. Even if I never got credit. Just knowing that somewhere, somehow, I was helping your vision become real made the failure of everything else bearable. Pega closed her eyes, overwhelmed. She had wanted to hate him, had needed to hate him to survive the pain of their marriage falling apart. But this man standing before her, broken and honest and fighting to become someone worthy of a second chance, was not the man who had left her in that hospital. He was someone different, someone forged in the fire of consequence. I can't forgive you yet, she said finally. I'm not ready. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. I understand. But I need you to know that those emails mattered, that funding those scholarships mattered, that seeing you fight for me, even in secret, even when I didn't know it matters. Holly's breath hitched. Hope flickered across his face before he controlled it. I'll keep funding them, he said quietly. Whether you forgive me or not, whether we ever speak again or not. I'll keep doing it because it's the right thing to do. Because those students deserve the support you never had. Because somewhere in this wreckage of what we were, I can at least do one thing right. Pega walked to her desk, pulled out a checkbook. She wrote a figure that made Holly's eyes widen when she handed it to him. That's for the scholarship fund. It'll cover what you've contributed and then some. Use it to expand the program. Help more students, but stop destroying yourself financially to do it. Holly stared at the check like it might burn him. Pega, I can't. You can, and you will. Because those students need someone who isn't sacrificing their own survival to help them. They need someone who can sustain the support long term. She met his eyes. And because I need you to stop punishing yourself. Punishment won't change the past. It'll just destroy your future. Holly took the check with trembling hands. Thank you for this, for everything you've built, for being stronger than I ever was. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you've proven that the man who wrote those emails is real, that he's not just a ghost who appears when it's safe. How do I prove that? Pega's smile was sad. I don't know, Holly, but you'll figure it out. Or you won't. Either way, I'm done waiting for you to decide who you want to be. She pressed the button for her assistant. Please show Mr. Cherry out. As Holly left, he paused at the door. For what it's worth, I'm proud of you. Everything you've built, everything you've become. It's extraordinary. I'm sorry I wasn't brave enough to tell you that when it mattered. The door closed behind him. Pega sat down heavily, looking at the scattered papers on her office floor. Evidence of a man who had loved her imperfectly, failed her repeatedly, but never stopped believing in her dream. Was belief enough? Could it bridge the years of damage? She did not know, but for the first time since she had walked out of that engagement party, she allowed herself to consider that maybe it was worth finding out. Her phone buzzed. Amanda Cherry's name flashed on the screen. A text message. I need to talk to you. It's important, please. Pega stared at the message. First the mother, then the husband, now the sister. The Cherry family seemed determined to dismantle her carefully constructed walls, one confession at a time. She typed back, Tomorrow, 10 a.m. My office. This is your only chance to say whatever you need to say. The response came immediately. Thank you. I won't waste it. Pega set her phone down and returned to the window, watching the city continue its relentless rhythm below. Tomorrow, she would face Amanda. Tomorrow, she would hear another confession, another apology, another plea for understanding. But tonight, she would sit with the revelation that Holly had been fighting for her all along, even when she thought she was fighting alone. It did not erase the pain, did not undo the damage, but it changed the narrative just enough to let a sliver of light into the darkness, and sometimes a sliver was all you needed to find your way forward. Chapter 6. The Sisters' Gambit. Amanda Cherry arrived at exactly 10 a.m., dressed in jeans and a plain sweater. No designer labels, no expensive jewelry, no armor of wealth and privilege. She looked terrified. Pega gestured to the chair across from her desk. Amanda sat down carefully, her hands clasped tightly in her lap, her eyes red from crying. Thank you for seeing me, Amanda began, her voice small and uncertain. I wouldn't have blamed you if you'd refused. I almost did, Pega replied honestly. But curiosity won. What could Amanda Cherry possibly have to say to me that matters? Amanda flinched at the coldness in Pega's tone, but did not retreat from it. I'm here to tell you the truth, and to beg for something I don't deserve. Then speak. You have 30 minutes. Amanda took a shaky breath. I'm a monster. I know that now. I called you a stinky country girl. I mocked your shoes, your clothes, your exhaustion. I watched you work yourself to death and I laughed at you for being tired. Her voice broke. You were working 4 jobs to survive, and I made fun of you for not looking glamorous. You were building an empire, and I treated you like garbage. I'm everything that's wrong with people like me. Privileged, cruel, empty. Tears started rolling down her face. My engagement ended 3 weeks ago. Richard sat me down and told me he couldn't marry me because I'm hollow inside. He said being with me was like being with a beautiful mannequin, pretty to look at but nothing underneath. She looked at Pega with devastated eyes. And he was right. I don't have one real friend. Nobody trusts me because I've spent my entire life judging everyone. I learned cruelty from my mother and wore it like a badge of honor. I made people feel small because it made me feel big. Amanda's composure shattered completely. She slid from the chair onto her knees on the floor, just as her mother had done, her body shaking with sobs. I don't have anything inside me that's real. I don't know who I am without the cruelty and the judgment and the privilege. I'm 30 years old, and I've never earned anything, never built anything, never been anything except someone's mean girl. She looked up at Pega from the floor, mascara running, all pretense stripped away. You built yourself from nothing. You took every insult, every humiliation, every moment of pain, and you transformed it into power. You're everything I pretend to be but aren't. You're substantial, real, strong. Get up, Amanda. No. Amanda shook her head violently. No, I need to do this. I need to be on my knees when I ask you for this because I have no right to ask it standing. Ask what? Hire me. Put me to work. The lowest position you have. I'll clean toilets, I'll scrub floors, I'll do whatever you need. Minimum wage. I don't want your charity. I want to learn what it means to earn something, to build something, to be worth something beyond my last name and my bank account. Pega stared at her. You want me to hire you? After everything you did? After every cruel word, every mocking laugh, every moment of making my life hell? Yes, because I'm exactly who you would have become if you'd had money and cruelty as teachers. I'm the alternate universe version of you where everything went wrong, and I want to learn how to be the version where things went right. Amanda's honesty was so raw, so devastating, that Pega felt her anger wavering. Why would I do this? Pega asked. Why would I give you a chance you never gave me? Because you're better than me. Because you understand what it's like to need an opportunity and not get one. Because maybe somewhere in that brilliant mind of yours, you see that I'm genuinely broken and genuinely trying to fix myself. Amanda pulled out her phone, showing Pega a photo. It was Amanda, in a housekeeping uniform, taken in what looked like a small hotel. I've been working as a maid for the past month, at a hotel across town. Minimum wage. They don't know who I am. I told them I needed to learn the business from the ground up. Pega's eyebrows rose. You're already working as a maid? Yes, and I'm terrible at it. I'm slow. I make mistakes. I don't know how to properly clean a bathroom or fold hospital corners on a bed. But I'm trying. And every day, I think about you doing this work while studying for your degree, while building your empire, while my brother failed you and my mother tormented you. She put her phone away. I don't want your pity. I want your respect. And I know I can't earn it unless I start at the bottom like you did, unless I understand what you overcame. Pega stood, walking around her desk to stand in front of Amanda, still on her knees. If I hire you, it won't be easy. You'll work harder than you've ever worked. You'll be treated like every other employee, no special favors. And your family will see you in that uniform. They'll know you're working for me. Can you handle that humiliation? It's not humiliation if it's deserved. And yes, I can handle it. I want them to see. I want them to understand what you endured while we treated you like dirt. Pega considered. This could be a trap. Amanda could be playing her, looking for inside information, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. But looking into Amanda's eyes, Pega saw something she recognized. The same desperate hunger she had felt all those years ago when she was studying in empty hotel lobbies. The need to be more than circumstances allowed. You start Monday. Housekeeping. 7 a.m. Don't be late. Amanda's face transformed. Relief and gratitude and something like hope flickered across her features. "Thank you. I won't let you down." "You probably will. Everyone does. But we'll see if you can get back up when you fall." Amanda moved toward the door, then paused. "Pega? For what it's worth, Holly is destroying himself over losing you. He works 3 jobs, lives in a terrible apartment, and spends every free moment either working or staring at pictures of you from when you were happy. He's broken. Completely broken." "Good," Pega said coldly. "He deserves to be broken. He earned it." "I know, but I thought you should know that he's not pretending. He's genuinely shattered. And my mother has been in therapy. Real therapy, working through her trauma. She's trying to change too." Amanda opened the door. "I'm not asking you to forgive any of us. I just thought you should know that what you built, it didn't just defeat us. It showed us exactly who we really are, and we're all horrified by what we see." She left. Pega stood alone in her office, processing everything. Diane's confession, Holly's secret support, Amanda's transformation. The Cherry family was systematically dismantling themselves in front of her, exposing every wound, every weakness, every regret. Part of her felt vindicated, part of her felt victorious, but another part, a part she was not ready to examine too closely, felt something dangerously close to sadness. Winning was supposed to feel better than this. Chapter 7. The Empire Speaks. 3 months passed. Amanda proved herself to be genuine, working harder than anyone expected, transforming from entitled socialite into someone with substance. Holly continued his quiet work funding scholarships and rebuilding himself. Diane remained in therapy, facing her demons. Pega watched it all from her tower, her empire growing stronger while her isolation grew deeper. Then her executive team approached with a proposal. "We want to host a charity gala," her marketing director said. "Tell your story publicly, inspire other women entrepreneurs, launch an expanded scholarship program. It's perfect timing with all the media attention from the engagement party incident." Pega considered. She had spent years building in the shadows. Maybe it was time to step into the light on her own terms. "Book the grand ballroom," she said. "Make it the biggest event this city has ever seen." Plans moved quickly. Pega invited every business leader, journalist, and influential person in the city. The Cherry family received invitations too. She wanted them to see what she had become, to understand the magnitude of what they had tried to destroy. The night of the gala arrived with crystalline clarity. The ballroom sparkled with thousands of lights, 500 guests in formal wear, media crews from every major outlet, the stage set for Pega's most important moment. Holly stood near the back, looking uncomfortable in a rented tuxedo. Amanda worked the event as part of the catering staff, having insisted on earning her place rather than attending as a guest. Diane sat near the middle, her face pale, her body language radiating discomfort. The program began with dinner, speeches from local leaders, and testimonials from students who had received scholarships from her fund. Each story was powerful, each face a reminder of why she had built this empire. Finally, Pega took the stage. The room fell silent. Every eye turned to her. She looked stunning in a midnight blue gown, her hair styled elegantly, every inch the powerful businesswoman she had become. "Thank you all for being here tonight," she began, her voice steady and strong. "I want to tell you a story about a maid who had a dream." She spoke about working 4 jobs, about studying in empty hotel lobbies at 2 in the morning, about being told she was not good enough, smart enough, worthy enough. "I built the McDonald Hospitality Group from nothing, no inheritance, no wealthy investors, just hard work, smart decisions, and an absolute refusal to let other people's opinions define my worth." The room erupted in applause. Pega let it wash over her, then continued. "But here's what they don't tell you about success. They don't tell you that you can build an empire and still feel empty at night, that you can prove everyone wrong and still wish that one person had believed in you when it was hard, that you can be powerful and still be heartbroken. The applause faded. The room leaned in, captivated. Pega's voice softened, became more vulnerable. Some people in this room tried to destroy me. They mocked my background. They questioned my worth. They made me feel small when I was working to become bigger than their limited vision could see. She did not name names. She did not need to. Everyone knew the story. But I'm not here for revenge. I'm here to show every woman watching that your success doesn't need their approval, that you can rise above people who try to tear you down, that your worth is not determined by the people who fail to see it. She gestured to the students seated at a special table. These young people received scholarships from my fund. They're working as maids, servers, janitors while studying hotel management. They're exhausted. They're struggling. They're exactly where I was years ago. Her voice trembled slightly. And some of them are being supported by someone who failed me in many ways, but never stopped believing in my dream. She looked directly at Holly, who stood frozen at the back of the room, tears streaming down his face. Holly Cherry has been anonymously funding scholarships for 2 years, working 3 jobs to afford it, living in poverty to support strangers pursuing their dreams. He failed me as a husband in ways that broke me, but he never stopped fighting for the vision I shared with him the night we met. The crowd was utterly silent, hanging on every word. I'm announcing tonight the creation of the expanded Holly Cherry Scholarship Fund, matching every dollar he donated, growing it to help hundreds of students across the country, not because our marriage survived, it didn't, but because those students deserve support, regardless of the complicated history between us. Holly's knees buckled. He grabbed the wall for support, his face a mask of shock and emotion. This empire I built was supposed to prove I didn't need anyone, that I could succeed alone, that I was strong enough to stand without help. Pega's voice shook with genuine emotion. But the truth is, success is lonely when you achieve it alone. Power feels empty when you have no one to share it with. I conquered this city, but I lost myself in the process of proving I didn't need the person who first believed I could. She looked around the room. So tonight, we celebrate these students. We fund their dreams. We give them the opportunities I had to fight for. And we remember that strength isn't about never needing anyone. It's about being brave enough to admit when you do. The room erupted, not just applause, a standing ovation that went on for minutes. People were crying. Some were shouting encouragement. The energy was electric. Pega stepped off the stage, her heart pounding. She had exposed herself in a way she never had before, had admitted vulnerability publicly, had acknowledged that winning alone was not actually winning. She found Holly standing by the bar, his face wet with tears, his hand shaking around a glass of water. Pega, I don't know what to say. The scholarship fund, the speech, everything you... Don't thank me. Those students earned it. You earned it by actually trying to become someone different. Holly wiped his face. I never expected this, never expected you to acknowledge what I've been doing publicly. I was doing it for them, not for recognition. I know. That's why it mattered. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. The gala continued around them, but they existed in a bubble of complicated history and impossible choices. Is there any chance, Holly asked quietly, any chance at all that someday you might consider giving me another opportunity to prove I've changed? Pega looked at him. Really looked at him. At the man who had held her when her mother died. At the husband who had failed her in the hospital. At the stranger who had funded scholarships in secret. At all the contradictions and complications that made him human. I don't know, she said honestly. I genuinely don't know. You destroyed us, Holly, and I don't know if destroyed things can ever be whole again. I understand. But, she continued, surprising herself. I'm willing to consider the possibility. Not now, not soon, but someday. Maybe, if you keep proving that the man who wrote those emails is real. Holly's breath caught. I will, I swear I will, however long it takes. Don't swear, just do it. Swearing means nothing. Actions mean everything. She walked away, returning to her guests, leaving Holly standing by the bar with something that looked dangerously close to hope flickering in his eyes. The gala ended at midnight. Pega stood alone in the empty ballroom, surrounded by the debris of a successful evening. She had exposed herself, had admitted that power without connection was just loneliness dressed up in expensive clothes. It felt vulnerable, scary, but also strangely liberating. Her assistant approached. Ms. MacDonald, there's a delivery for you. It just arrived. A small package sat on the table. No return address, just her name in familiar handwriting. Pega opened it carefully. Inside was a single photograph, the one from their wedding day at the courthouse. On the back, Holly had written a note. This is who we were before I broke us. This is who I'm fighting to become again, not for you, for me. Because the man in this photo deserved to grow into someone better, not someone weaker. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for believing enough in what I'm trying to do to make it public. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'll spend the rest of my life earning the right to ask for it. Always, Holly. Pega held the photograph, looking at their younger selves, so full of hope, so certain that love would be enough. She did not cry. She had cried enough. But she did allow herself to wonder, just for a moment, if maybe someday, somehow, broken things could be carefully, painstakingly, impossibly rebuilt. The answer was, not yet. Maybe not ever. But for the first time in 5 years, it was not an absolute no. And sometimes, maybe was all the hope you needed to keep going. Chapter 8. The Crisis. 6 months after the gala, Pega's world shifted unexpectedly. A major investor, Lawrence Whitman, pulled out of a deal that would have expanded her hotel empire internationally. The withdrawal was sudden, unexpected, and devastating to her expansion plans. The reason, her complicated personal life had made him uncomfortable. Pega sat in her lawyer's office, listening to the explanation with growing fury. Mr. Whitman feels that your public acknowledgement of your marital troubles at the gala demonstrated poor judgment. He's concerned about stability, about potential scandals affecting the brand. I was honest, Pega said coldly. I told the truth. That's poor judgment. Her lawyer shrugged helplessly. In his world, keeping personal matters private is considered professional. He thinks you overshared. The loss of Whitman's investment created a domino effect. Other potential investors hesitated. Banks reconsidered loans. Her expansion plans, meticulously crafted over months, began crumbling. Pega spent days in emergency meetings, restructuring finances, seeking alternative funding. The empire she had built was not in danger of collapse, but its growth had been severely stunted. She was furious, exhausted, and for the first time in years, genuinely worried. Amanda, who had been working diligently for months and had become something resembling a trusted employee, heard about the crisis through the office. She immediately called Holly. "You need to know what's happening," Amanda told her brother. "The gala backfired. Pega is losing investors because she was honest about her personal life. Her expansion plans are falling apart." Holly felt his world tilt. Pega was suffering because she had been generous enough to publicly acknowledge his scholarship fund, because she had been vulnerable enough to admit her pain. He made a decision that would change everything. Holly liquidated his entire life, sold his few remaining possessions, withdrew what little he had in savings, cashed out a small retirement fund, taking the penalties, borrowed against his future earnings, called in favors from every business contact he had ever made. 3 days later, he walked into Pega's office with a check. Pega looked up from her computer, surprised. She had not seen or spoken to Holly since the gala. He looked even thinner than before, his clothes hanging loosely, his face drawn with exhaustion. "Holly, what are you doing here?" He placed the check on her desk. Pega looked down at the amount and felt her breath catch. It was every dollar he had. Everything he could possibly scrape together. "It's not enough to save the business," Holly said quietly. "It's not enough to replace Whitman's investment. But it's everything I have. Take it." Pega stared at the check, then at him. "This is your entire life. My entire life is watching you from a distance, knowing that your honesty about my failures cost you your expansion, that being generous enough to acknowledge my scholarship fund made investors doubt you, that trying to be human in public punished you for it." He moved closer, though he still did not touch her. "You lost opportunities because you were kind to me, because you were honest about pain, because you showed the world that success doesn't erase heartbreak, and I can't bear that." Pega pushed the check back toward him. "I don't need your money, Holly. I'll find other investors. I'll restructure. I'll survive. I always survive. I know you will. You're the strongest person I've ever met. But this isn't about you needing my money. This is about me finally putting my money where my mouth has been for years, about proving that I'm willing to sacrifice everything for you, the way you sacrificed everything for us." His voice broke. "I sold everything I own to give you this check. I borrowed against my future. I have nothing left. And if it still isn't enough, if you still don't believe I've changed, then at least I'll know I gave everything I could." Pega stood up, walking around her desk to stand directly in front of him. "You're an idiot. I know. You just destroyed your financial stability for a gesture that won't even fix my problem. I know. You're living in a terrible apartment, working yourself to exhaustion, and now you've given away the last of your money." "I know." She grabbed his collar, pulling him close, her eyes blazing. "And you did it anyway, even knowing it wasn't enough, even knowing I might refuse it, even knowing it would leave you with nothing." Holly's eyes filled with tears. "Because loving you means giving everything, even when it's not enough, even when it won't be accepted, even when it doesn't change the past. I'm not trying to buy your forgiveness. I'm trying to prove that I'm not the man who let you collapse in a hospital anymore. I'm someone different, someone who would sell everything to support your dream." Pega let go of his collar, stepping back. Her hands were shaking. Her carefully constructed walls were crumbling brick by brick. "I don't need your money," she repeated, but her voice was softer now. "I solved the funding problem yesterday, found new investors who don't care about my personal life. The expansion is back on track." Holly's face fell. "Oh, that's good. I'm glad." He reached for the check. "Then I'll take this back and—" Pega grabbed the check before he could. "But I'm keeping it anyway." "What? Why?" "Because you need to learn that grand gestures don't fix broken things, but they do show intent. And intent matters when you're trying to prove you've changed." She walked to her desk, deposited the check in a drawer, and locked it. "I'm putting this in a trust for your scholarship fund. You'll oversee it, but you can't touch it for personal use. It's dedicated to helping students. Forever." Holly stared at her, confusion and hope warring on his face. "I don't understand. I know. That's what makes this real. You gave me everything expecting nothing. Not expecting me to take you back. Not expecting forgiveness. Not expecting reward. Just wanting to support my dream, even at the cost of your own survival." She moved closer to him, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, close enough to remember what it felt like when touching him felt natural. "I've spent 5 years building walls to keep you out, to protect myself from ever being hurt like that again. And you've spent those same years becoming the man I needed you to be 5 years ago." Holly's breath caught. "Pega, don't speak. Just listen. I'm not ready to forgive you. I'm not ready to take you back. I don't know if I'll ever be ready. She took his hand, the first time she had voluntarily touched him in years. But I'm willing to consider the possibility. I'm willing to explore what it would mean to rebuild. Not what we were. We can't go back to that. But maybe something new, something stronger. Something built by two people who've both been broken and learned how to stand alone. Holly's tears fell freely now. What does that mean? What do I do? How do we start? Pega's smile was sad and hopeful in equal measure. It starts with you taking care of yourself, getting a better apartment, eating properly, not destroying yourself trying to prove something. I don't care about those things. I do, because I can't build anything with someone who's falling apart. I need you to be stable, healthy, whole, not as some tortured martyr punishing himself forever. She squeezed his hand. And it starts with time. Time for me to trust that this version of you is real, that you won't revert to the weak man who chose comfort over courage the moment things get hard. How much time? I don't know, maybe months, maybe years. But if you're serious about this, about becoming someone worthy of a second chance, then time shouldn't scare you. Holly nodded, understanding. I'll wait, however long it takes. I'll build a life I'm proud of. I'll become someone strong enough to stand beside you. And if that takes forever, then that's what it takes. Good. Now leave. Go home. Get some rest. Take care of yourself. And stop making grand gestures. I don't need drama. I need consistency. Holly moved toward the door, then paused. Pega, thank you. For not giving up on the possibility, for leaving the door open, even just a crack. Don't thank me yet. Thank me when you've proven this is real, when you've shown me that the man I married still exists, somewhere inside the person you've become. He left. Pega stood alone in her office, looking at the locked drawer that now contained Holly's entire life savings. She did not know what the future held, did not know if broken things could truly be rebuilt. But for the first time in 5 years, she allowed herself to hope that maybe they could. Chapter 9. The Mother's Breaking. 3 months after Holly gave Pega everything he owned, on a Tuesday evening when autumn rain painted the city in shades of grey, Pega received a phone call that changed everything, Holly's voice on the line, steady but urgent. Pega, I need you to know something, before you hear it from someone else, before it becomes news. Her heart clenched. What happened? My mother is in the hospital. She attempted suicide last night. She's stable now, but it was close. Pega felt her breath leave her body. Oh God, Holly, I'm so sorry. I'm not calling for sympathy. I'm calling because she left a note, and you need to know what it said. Silence. She confessed everything. About the lies she told me, about manipulating my father's dying wishes, about the years of systematically destroying our marriage. She wrote it all down and sent copies to me, to Amanda, and to you. The envelope should arrive at your office tomorrow. Pega sat down heavily. Why would she do that? Why confess now? Because she's been in therapy for months, real therapy, working through her trauma, and it broke her open, made her confront what she'd done. The guilt became unbearable. His voice cracked. She tried to kill herself because she couldn't live with the person she'd been, because she destroyed so many lives and didn't know how to carry that weight anymore. Pega closed her eyes, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. What do you need from me? She asked quietly. Nothing. I'm not asking you to visit her. I'm not asking you to forgive her. I just needed you to know before the letter arrives. So you're prepared. How are you handling this? Holly's laugh was bitter. I don't know. Part of me is devastated that my mother tried to kill herself. Part of me is furious that even now, even trying to die, she's creating drama that affects everyone around her. Part of me feels guilty for cutting her off. It's a mess, Pega. I'm a mess. Do you need me to come there? To the hospital? The question surprised both of them. Holly was quiet for a long moment. I want to say yes. I want you here so badly it's hard to breathe. But I can't use my mother's suicide attempt to manipulate you into being near me. That would make me exactly like her, using crisis to control people. What if I'm offering freely? Not because you're manipulating me, but because you're going through something terrible and I have enough humanity to care. Another pause. Then yes. I would like you here. Not as my wife. Not even as my friend. Just as someone who understands the complicated history and won't judge me for feeling everything at once. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Pega arrived at the hospital to find Holly sitting alone in a waiting room, his head in his hands. Amanda sat nearby, equally devastated. Pega sat down beside Holly without saying anything, just sat there, her presence solid and real. Holly looked up, his eyes red from crying. You came. I came. Thank you. They sat in silence for a while. Then Holly spoke, his voice hollow. The doctor said she'll physically recover, but mentally, emotionally, she needs long-term intensive care, possibly inpatient treatment for a while. She's broken, Pega, completely broken. I know something about being broken, Pega said quietly. It doesn't excuse what she did, but I understand it. Amanda approached them. The doctor says we can see her, one at a time. She's asking for Holly. Holly stood up, looking terrified. I don't know what to say to her. Pega took his hand. Say the truth, whatever that is. She doesn't deserve lies, even kind ones. Holly nodded and walked toward his mother's room. Pega and Amanda sat together in the waiting room. This is my fault, Amanda whispered. I knew she was struggling. I knew therapy was bringing up painful things. I should have watched her more closely. This is not your fault, Pega said firmly. Your mother's mental health is not your responsibility. Her choices are her own. Holly emerged from his mother's room 20 minutes later, his face pale but calm. She apologized, really apologized. Not the performative kind, the kind that costs something. She told me she doesn't expect forgiveness. She just wanted me to know that she sees now what she did, that she destroyed me trying to heal herself. He sat down next to Pega. I told her I don't forgive her yet, maybe not ever, but I don't hate her anymore. I just feel sad for her, for the life she wasted being controlled by fear and pride. Pega squeezed his hand. That's honest. That's all you can give her. They stayed at the hospital until late into the night. Pega sat with Holly through the conversations with doctors, the discussions about treatment plans, the painful family meetings. She did not have to be there, had no obligation. But she stayed anyway, because sometimes love was not about grand gestures or perfect moments. Sometimes it was just about showing up when someone needed you, even when the situation was messy and complicated and uncomfortable. Around midnight, as they stood in the parking lot preparing to leave, Holly turned to Pega. Why did you come tonight, really? Pega considered the question carefully. Because watching someone I once loved suffer alone felt wrong, because I'm trying to be the person I want to be, not the person pain turned me into. Because maybe we've both been broken enough to understand that being there for each other doesn't mean we're weak, it means we're human. Holly's eyes filled with tears again. I love you. I never stopped. I know I have no right to say that. I know I destroyed that right years ago, but it's true, and I need you to know it even if you can't say it back. Pega felt her own tears start. I love you too, Holly. That's what makes this so hard. I love the man you were. I love the man you're becoming, but I don't know if I can trust that the man you were won't come back the moment things get difficult. How do I prove he won't? Time, consistency, showing up. Not just for the crises, but for the boring everyday moments. Not just when it's dramatic, but when it's mundane. She wiped her eyes. Your mother tried to kill herself tonight, and you didn't call me begging for rescue. You called to inform me professionally. You gave me a choice. You respected my boundaries even in the middle of your worst nightmare. That's the proof I need. That version of you. Holly nodded, understanding. Then I'll keep being that version. Every day. Until you believe it's real. Okay, that's all I ask. They stood in the parking lot, two broken people learning how to be whole again, separately and maybe someday together. Pegah drove home alone that night, but for the first time in years, alone did not feel lonely. It felt like healing, like progress, like the slow, painful rebuilding of something that had been shattered. The letter from Diane arrived at Pegah's office the next morning. She read it alone, the words devastating in their honesty. Diane confessed everything, every lie, every manipulation, every calculated move. She did not beg for forgiveness. She simply stated the truth and accepted responsibility. At the end, she wrote, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I needed you to know that I see now what I was too blind to see then. You were never the problem. I was. And I destroyed my son's happiness because I was too broken to fix myself. I'm sorry. Those words mean nothing, but they're all I have." Pegah folded the letter and put it in her desk drawer, next to the hospital bracelet, next to the wedding photo, next to the cold dinner container, next to all the evidence that love, even broken love, left marks that never fully disappeared. Over the following weeks, Pegah found herself thinking about Diane's letter, about the weight of regret, about how fear could turn people into monsters and how facing that truth could destroy them. She visited Diane once, just once, at the psychiatric facility where she was receiving treatment. Diane looked small in the hospital bed, diminished. "You came," Diane whispered, shocked. "I came to tell you something," Pegah said. "I forgive you." Diane's eyes filled with tears. "You shouldn't. I don't deserve. I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because carrying hate is exhausting. Because holding on to anger was keeping me trapped in the past. Because forgiveness doesn't mean what you did was okay. It just means I'm done letting it control my life." Pegah leaned forward. "But here's the condition. You get better, really better. You do the work in therapy. You face your demons. You become someone your children can have a relationship with that isn't toxic." Diane nodded, tears streaming. "I'll try. I promise I'll try." "Don't promise, just do it." Pegah left feeling lighter than she had in years. Holly called her that evening. "Amanda told me you visited my mother." "Why?" "Because I needed to close that chapter. She can't hurt me anymore, Holly. She only had power because I gave it to her. I took it back today." "You're extraordinary." Pegah smiled. "I know, but thank you for noticing." They laughed together, and it felt natural. "Pegah?" Holly's voice became serious. "Would you have dinner with me? Just as two people getting to know who they've become." Her heart raced. "Just dinner. Just dinner, I promise," she considered. Months of watching Holly transform, months of her own healing. "Okay, dinner, but I picked the place." Deal. Chapter 10. The Reckoning. 1 year later, Holly stood in the rooftop garden of the Grand Meridian Hotel, the place where he had proposed to Pegah 7 years ago. The garden looked different now. Pegah replied, "No. We're building something better than engagement. We're building trust." Over the following months, they moved forward together. Holly continued his teaching. Pegah continued expanding her empire, but now they did it as partners. Diane completed her treatment and began rebuilding relationships with her children. She would never fully repair the damage, but she was trying. Amanda had flourished, eventually moving into hotel management. She had become someone substantial. One evening, as Pegah and Holly sat in their favorite restaurant, he reached across the table. "I'm ready," he said. "Ready for what?" "To marry you, for real. To stand in front of everyone we love and make vows I can actually keep." Pegah felt her heart race. "I'm ready too, but I have conditions." "Of course you do," Holly smiled. "Name them." "We write our own vows, honest ones, that acknowledge what we've been through." Agreed. And we do it our way, just us and the people who supported us. Perfect. And you promise that if we ever start falling into old patterns, you'll speak up. Holly squeezed her hand. I promise, and you promise the same. I promise. They sat together, holding hands, two people who had destroyed each other and learned to rebuild. The queen who had conquered an empire finally allowed herself to be vulnerable again. The king who had lost everything learned to stand as an equal beside her. Their story was not a fairy tale. It was better. It was real, messy and complicated and beautiful precisely because it had survived the breaking. Pega looked at the promise ring on her finger, soon to be replaced with a wedding band. We're going to make it, she said with certainty. Yes, Holly agreed. We are. And in the city, Pega had conquered through sheer will and brilliance. In the life she had built from nothing, she finally allowed herself to believe that sometimes broken things could be rebuilt into something stronger than they ever were before. Not perfect, not without scars, but whole, honest, real. And that, she realized, was everything she had ever truly needed. The end. Pega had renovated it. New flowers bloomed, string lights created constellations overhead. A small fountain added music to the evening air, but the essence remained. The view of the city, the sense of possibility. Pega had asked him to meet her here, had not explained why. He arrived early, nervous. They had been rebuilding their relationship for over a year now, moving slowly, carefully. They spent most nights together, had become partners in the truest sense. They had not remarried, had not officially moved in together, but they had become something real. The elevator doors opened. Pega stepped out, wearing the simple white dress from their courthouse wedding. Holly's breath caught. Pega. She walked toward him, her eyes bright. In her hands, she carried a small box. 7 years ago, you proposed to me in this garden, she said. You asked me to marry you because you needed me to teach you how to be strong. And I said yes, because I thought love was enough. Holly nodded, remembering. We were wrong, Pega continued. Love wasn't enough. We destroyed each other because we didn't know how to love ourselves first. She stopped in front of him. But we're not those people anymore. You became the man I needed you to be, not for me, but for yourself. And I became whole enough to consider letting you back in. She opened the box. Inside were 2 new rings, simple platinum bands. I'm not asking you to marry me again, Pega said. I'm asking you if you're ready to build something real, something between equals who chose each other's strength, not their need. Holly felt tears streaming. What are those rings? Promise rings. Not engagement, not marriage. Just a promise that we're committed to this, to building something that honors who we've become. She took out the first ring. This is my promise to you. I promise to see you as you are now, not who you were. I promise to give you space to be human. I promise to communicate instead of building walls. I promise to be your partner, not your judge. Holly took the ring with shaking hands, reading the inscription, built from ruins, stronger for the breaking. He slipped it onto his finger. And this, Pega said, holding up the second ring, is your promise to me. Holly took the ring. I promise to stand beside you, not behind you or in front of you. I promise to choose you publicly, loudly, every time. I promise that my actions will match my words. I promise to be brave enough to lose you, rather than weak enough to keep you through manipulation. He read her ring's inscription. Love without courage is just surrender. He slid it onto her finger, then pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. Is this real? Are we really doing this? We're really doing this, not rushing to marriage, not pretending the past didn't happen, just building something new, slowly, honestly, together. Holly pulled back slightly. I'm terrified. Terrified I'll fail you again. You might. I might fail you too. We're human. We'll make mistakes. Pega's voice was fierce. But we're not the people who destroyed each other anymore. We're different, stronger. We've both been broken and learned how to rebuild ourselves. Now we're learning to build something together. They stood in the garden where their story had begun, wearing promise rings that acknowledged both the destruction and the possibility of reconstruction. Holly pulled out his phone, showing her architectural plans. I've been working on something, a house, for when you're ready. Pega studied the plans. This is beautiful. We'd design it together, every room, every detail, a fresh start in a place that has no ghosts. I want that, not now, but soon. They sat together on a bench overlooking the city, Pega's head on Holly's shoulder, his arm around her waist. Do you remember what you asked me the night we met? Pega said quietly. I asked you what your dream was. And I said I wanted to own a place like this, so no one could make me feel small again. Holly nodded. And now you own a dozen places like this. But you know what? Pega looked up at him. The empire doesn't mean anything if I'm sitting in it alone. I built everything I wanted, but I forgot to build space for love. She touched the ring on her finger. This is my new dream. Not conquering. Building. Not alone. Together. Holly kissed her forehead. Then let's build it, however long it takes. They watched the sun set over the city Pega had conquered. I love you, Holly said simply. Not the way I loved you before, desperately and weakly. I love you with strength, with respect, with genuine partnership. I love you too, Pega replied. Not the way I loved you before, needing you to save me. I love you with wholeness, with choice, with eyes wide open to who you really are. They stayed in the garden until the stars came out. Amanda texted Pega. Did he propose? Are you engaged?